Okay, I'm about ready to ink a some part of a page for Rhiannon, which is the book I'm working on currently. And before I do, Esmé has just handed me a picture, so let's take a look. I see you've drawn a hand with a heart, and what else? What is
That's a rock inside of a little jar on a table and a chair.
Oh, okay.
And that's the sun. And then on
the other side, it looks like a forest.
That's a sun and a forest.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. Okay, are you going to stay out here and watch? Or are you going inside?
I'm going inside.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to start inking. I'm inking Rhiannon. Here is rollerblading, and I'm using a Hunt 102 pen. I use Hunt nibs to ink, but I haven't been using the 102. I decided to give it a try since it's supposed to be the, you know, it's kind of like the famous cartoonist's nib. I use a larger nib normally that is more meant for calligraphy, but I prefer it as it gives me a thick line when I need it. I don't use a brush. Keep meaning to learn how to use a brush, but for now I've just been using the pen nibs. So I've decided to give the 102 a try, especially for the smaller pictures. Like this one here is a little bit more detail and requires some smaller drawing. It's pretty easy to get used to if you've been using another nib. Requires a bit more force to press down on than the nib I was using. I realize that now that I'm using this one. And I really got to be careful not to do too thin of a line because my reproduction size I reduced down 50%, so that actually makes the artwork pretty small, and when you get too thin of a line, it just, I don't have the problem of it disappearing so much as it just gets too thin for my taste. So I'm trying to work with a thicker line, and I can see where this nib might be good if I was not reducing down so much. But I'll work with it. Done a few pages already. Using it, that is, rather than the other one that I've been using. Okay. I'll just get her rollerblades. I do all the circles freehand. You know, they're kind of hard to do, and they all come out somewhat lopsided, but they look okay. They look good enough. Even if I use a template or a compass to do them in pencil first, I don't use any of that to ink them. The inking, I'll ink all the circles and so forth. Just freehand, and depending on how steady I'm feeling, they might come out kind of lopsided or not. There's a way to use, to use a compass with a ruling pen, or you could just stick a technical pen in there, and for the smaller circles, you could use a template. Then there's a way to do that with ink as well, but I usually don't bother. And every once in a while I'll use a tech pen and a compass if it absolutely has to be perfectly round, but usually I don't like the way the tech pens look alongside the stuff I do with the dip pen. Although I do roll out the panels on my page in those Micron tech pens. I think the main issue I have with those is when you start erasing your pencil lines, the Microns, some of it erases, and you end up with not as black a line. And sometimes that will show up when I try to scan it. It'll not be quite as opaque a line or as solid a line. It'll look kind of jagged and rough, kind of like a pencil line. I used to use this nib to, for a while I was ruling out the borders with the dip pen, and I would use this nib here, which is good for a line that you don't want to vary the thickness. You want the same thickness of a line, so just a nice straight line like a border line. This nib's good for that, but you have to be real careful, and every once in a while I would smear it. And good thing about it is you could erase the pencil underneath and it would still be nice and dark. The ink would be. But I just went back to microns just to save time. Could do it faster, and I'm just careful erasing around the panel borders now. Okay, so there she is. It's the first panel of the page. She's putting on her skates. Close-up shot of the skates, and off she goes. Oh, I smeared some ink there. And the rest of the page is, let's see if I can bring it up here. The rest of the page is just shots of her going through town on her skates, and she finally arrives at a library.